Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And we are so excited to have our friend Kat Schwarz back with us, joining us here today, live on the podcast and on the Zoomcast as well. She's a holistic healer and so much more. A mom, a wife, right? Compassion Healing Services is the name of her company. To find her online, it's chsyoga.com. And again, she really offers a very unique way of treating people with their mental health, physical health, so on and so on. I'll let you do the honors. Please, Kat Schwarz, introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm Kat Schwarz. I am the owner and CEO of Compassionate Healing Services, which is a business and a mission. I am not a wife. I'm a wife to be. My
engaged, a fiance. That's
a
it. Sorry.
Yes, my wife to be, Alexandra Barclay. She and I.
Beautiful. Hello to you,
We haven't set a
Alexandra.
date
I
yet,
hope you're
but
watching. Congrats.
thank you. I'm going to talk a lot about her today.
Oh.
She's a big part of this, actually.
Well, my first question was going to be, we've been talking for quite a few weeks now, but is there anything else that you want to tell us about yourself? I mean, we've got to know each other, but still not enough. Fill me
Oh my
in.
gosh, we're just really scratching the surface. Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much more to this story. So I do, of course, want to start with the good because there's so much good. And I already mentioned the great, which is I finally found the relationship I was meant to be
dreaming
in.
of. Yep.
After a very difficult 17-year long relationship with in a very traditional heterosexual marriage in which patriarchal responsibilities, expectations were in place, and it was just something that really didn't work for me, to say the least. But yeah, we have three beautiful children. Ben is almost 12. Charlie is going to be 9 in November. And then even though Charlie and Ben are biologically mine and Alicia is biologically Alex's, Charlie and Alicia are 1 day apart. We call them 22-hour twins.
Just meant to be, right?
They were born a single day apart.
Awesome.
In 2013. Yes. So that they're the joy of our lives. And they've given me strong reason, and I've needed strong reason to stay here, because as we've talked about in the other episodes, I did reach a point in my life in 2017 where I became suicidal. And that was something that I will say that as much as in anyone who's been that depressed, anyone who has been to the point where, the thing I'll say about depression so severe that you're considering suicide is it feels, it's not that you want to die, it's just that you literally don't understand how you could possibly live with that level of pain, whether it's and it's pain on every level. I've never been in so much physical pain as when I was severely depressed. So it's pain on every possible level, and your brain, your mind, your ego, really all the same. Mind and ego are the same word for me. Will lie to you so severely when you're in that state, and will tell you things like you're the worst parent, or your kids or this world would be better off without you. But what I really had come to understand was at that point was that what I had experienced up to that point and in my childhood was traumatic, that I could own that label. I had a psychiatrist tell me in 2017 that I had complex PTSD, and it made more sense than any other label I'd been given before, which was bipolar and postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, and things like of that nature. The label of complex trauma at first really didn't almost feel like a jacket I could put on, because I hadn't experienced what a lot of people, including my wife to be, overt trauma in the form of abuse, physical, sexual, emotional, verbal. My traumas were, as I had explained earlier, more in the chaotically stressful realm. A lot of financial insecurity, a lot of sickness and early death. My mom was a nurse, and she took care of multiple family members in my home, including my own father before he passed away. There was mental illness. My mother had mental illness that was very much affected my childhood. My father had had an abusive childhood, which very much affected his anxiety levels in his adulthood, and made him difficult for him to parent. And meet us where we were as children in regards to our need to just kind of be kids sometimes and make noises and do things that are not, maybe a little bit risky. But my dad would have this phrase, "What's the matter with you?" That I
Uh,
really internalized. I really internalized that. And then my brother was a severe bully to me pretty much from the age of 5 on.
mm,
All of these factors became a cauldron of, a nervous system that simply did not develop normally or healthily. And that's
mm,
where it comes in with what we have spoken about in earlier episodes with ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. So
mm,
back in 1990, the early to mid 1990s, there was a landmark study known as the ACEs study, Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, that surprised itself. The researchers surprised themselves by finding out that even their privileged clients, this was a healthcare, Kaiser Permanente was had commissioned the study, and what they discovered was now their pool of study, the people they were studying had health insurance, which is in and of itself a privilege I don't even have at this
yeah,
point, right?
yeah.
Being in the position I am as a business owner. So I and what they found, that even though they were studying relatively privileged, racially privileged, financially privileged, college educated, that most of those a majority, 2/3 majority, had experienced at least one childhood trauma that was significant enough to be having a likely impact on physical and mental health. And what, of course, it showed was that there was a dose response relationship, meaning the more
That-
toxically stressful or abusive a childhood is, of course, the more severe the potential impacts. And we're talking about impacts such as people with 4 or more ACEs are 12 times more likely to consider suicide. People with 6 or more ACEs can live up to 20 years fewer than their non-traumatized counterparts. We're talking
Wow.
about enormous impacts. And then very close correlations with things like chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder and asthma and addictions, of course, and things we don't normally associate with trauma, but we really need to start.
Yeah.
Right, we need to start pretending like the cause of the problem isn't obvious. I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe mental illness runs in families. I believe trauma runs in
And
families.
families. That's a good way of looking at it. I've never thought about that. Thank you.
And
Wow.
so can healing, right?
Yeah.
So can healing. And it just takes one. And for me, it was me. I was the cycle breaker. I was the one who watched myself as a mother who was struggling, especially after the birth of my second child, with severe, severe anxiety. His trauma was, I'm sorry, his birth was a trauma. So it had exacerbated all these previous traumas and made my anxiety levels almost intolerable to me, truly, to the point where I needed to be medicated and just in order to function. And there were times I watched myself go into those very same cycles of, being too reactive with my children, or even a little, maybe using a little bit of force as I got them into the car seat, and then watching myself kind of be the same person that had scared me as a kid, and saying, you know what, this isn't good enough, and I had the ability and the resources and little support, but enough support clearly to get through it. And even at my lowest with my suicidality, as much as I didn't necessarily believe that I was a good mother or able, even, I never thought I would work again. I mean, I couldn't get out of bed. I would vomit every 6 hours, unless I had taken Xanax, which the withdrawal from Xanax could have killed me. So it was this awful, awful experience, and it truly felt hopeless. But it was my
Mm-hmm.
understanding of the ACEs research, believe it or not, and my understanding that I, who had had moderate trauma,
Yep.
had gotten to the point where I was really, really on the brink of making a really scary decision. And, whereas what would be more traumatizing to my own children than if I had taken my own life, right?
Ah,
So it didn't allow me to go there. And then it forced me to do things my own way, because I had done things at that point for years in talk therapy and EMDR even a partial hospitalization program in which I was being denied the very medication, the only medication
Mm-hmm.
that helped, which was cannabis. And it was having a psychiatrist that validated that what I had been through was trauma, and that I could heal that trauma, and therefore has happened, heal all of those one symptoms that made my life unlivable.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I wanted to say we're going to meet a little bit more, hear more of Alex's story today, is because it's very timely, actually, because there's this has been in the news, but Alex is the survivor of human trafficking. She was trafficked as a baby in 1986 from Chile to the United States. They're known as the Children of Silence. And just recently in the news, they're trying to change the Constitution to allow these babies to have dual citizenship. So, but unfortunately, she was also sold, if you will, to an abusive family. She had layers upon layers and years upon years of all different types of very overt abuse. She turned to hard drugs in her teens. She dropped out of, cocaine specifically. She dropped out of college, and really was in survival mode for a very long time until I believe God blessed her with her daughter to give her reason to survive. And it took us meeting, and for because believe it or not, when I first met Alex, she didn't even want to own the trauma label, because she, like me, thought like, oh, well, I've never been to war. I mean, she has in her own way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I've never worked in law enforcement or been at the front lines of traumatic events of that nature. So it even for her, it was hard for her to use the trauma label, which really just goes to show that we're always comparing ourselves, right? And that's why my book is called It Could Have Been Worse, because that comparison, that title, almost killed me. Me not being able to own that what I had been through was traumatic really could have ended my life. And the fact that it didn't, and because, as I said, moderate trauma, moderate mental illness, that describes me. Severe trauma, in Alex's case, severe mental illness. She lives with also complex PTSD, but the most severe form of it, which is borderline personality disorder. And it is a struggle. It is a struggle for the entire family. And it's a real passion of mine to put a survival support network in place for those who are in relationship and will be for life with people who cannot change the fact that they've been through severe trauma, and that's having impacts on their present relationships. So in a
Wow.
future episode, I think next episode will probably go more into specifically complex trauma, because there's a lot I want to say with that. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions around that. But for the last, if you don't mind, for the last time that we have together, I just want to go through all the services that I offer on my website, maybe just give a little bit more of a deeper explanation than you can find there.
Please.
And also because last episode we talked so much about what parents who have highly sensitive or even spiritually gifted children can do. And but if you want to work with me, I want to talk about what service would be most fitting with that. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one, if you'll go to my website, and my website is www.chsyoga. That stands for Compassionate Healing Services Yoga.com. Funny, actually, Compassionate Healing Services is a DBA, also it's known as a doing business as. The name of my business initially was Zen Mom Yoga, because I didn't ever see myself doing more than teaching yoga to fellow stressed out moms. And I had gotten my yoga teacher certification prior to my spiritual awakening, really because I wanted to see how it would enhance my work as a physical therapist. Because I'll remind your listeners, my professional background, I have a master's degree in physical therapy. I no longer have a physical therapy license, but it is certainly informs all that I know in regards to the physical health piece of this. That was a real foundational aspect for me. In addition to that, I have a yoga teacher certification, an accessible yoga certification. I am a Reiki master teacher, which means that I can attune others up to level 2. And meet with anyone for Reiki around the world virtually. And I have been a member of the New Jersey State Task Force on Adverse Childhood Experiences since
Mm-hmm.
its inception in 2018. I am a certified ACE interface presenter. So that's where that piece comes in. So I've really, I believe, have integrated it into a very unique service offering. I am also a spirit medium. I discovered that about myself as a Reiki master, as the messages were coming through and being confirmed, whether it was with cards we were pulling right away or clients walking away and telling me that, everything that had just transpired and had, manifested in their life in a short time. So I very much own that label for myself as well. So if you go on chsyoga.com, you'll see that I offer virtual oracle card reading and mediumship session. That would be a 45-minute session. We can meet whether it's about a specific question that you have or just looking for general guidance from your angels. We can use a variety of cards, including tarot, to answer questions about what's going on in your life. I also offer distance Reiki healing. So that's where I can do those Reiki sessions from anywhere in the world. Now, if you just read the language on my website, you'll see that's where that crazy label comes in, right? You'll see for both my distance offerings and my in-person offerings that I claim to be working with your spirit guides and your angels, and even the ascended masters that have walked the earth. I don't know that I don't think I'm working with these beings. I know I am. I have a lot of integrity. And as somebody who was an atheist for 18 years, and really the word God and angels used to offend me for a very long time after a nasty breakup with Catholicism. It took a long time for me to own that I really am sensitive in a way that's very unusual or at least not talked about on the planet. So yes, if you come to me for a Reiki session, you will get channeled guidance from your upper management, as I call
Yeah.
them,
Mm-hmm.
your spirit guides. And so my Reiki work and my mediumship work are to a degree just kind of inextricably linked. But if you want just the mediumship piece, as I said, the first option with the cards would be the best for that, unless you want to take advantage of my most popular unique offering, which is what I call spiritual private investigation services. So I have the ability to call in spirits once I understand who I'm looking for, in much in
Yeah.
the same way as a private investigator would take information ahead of time. There's a depiction in the movie Ghost from the 1990s that starred Whoopi Goldberg and Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze,
Yeah.
where Demi Moore walks around and all of these ghosts are following her at all times, trying to get her attention. It's actually a pretty accurate description. There's
Mm-hmm.
always signs coming in from different beings that are getting my attention. So if there's a specific loved one that you're looking to connect with, usually I'll ask for some information up front: name, date of birth, date of death, any specific interests or inside jokes. Just kind of get to know your loved one. And I promise you, I haven't failed yet. Within a 2 to 4 week period, I will come to you with at least 3 pieces of solid evidence that you can hold in your hand of, whether it's screenshots or physical pictures, whether it's, I can't always get a picture of something in the moment. I don't expect when it's going to happen, but I'm always
Mm-hmm.
open to the signs. So, I ask for your belief in my integrity, that all the information that I am presenting to you is true. And I have a lot of people tell me it really transformed their grieving process. It helped them to realize that the relationship with their loved one is not over, because my goal is to cut out the middleman, meaning me, and teach you the language of spirit. How can you know how spirit can talk to you now? You're not going to find them in their physical body, but you can find them in your heart chakra, and you will find them in the signs and synchronicity and magic that surrounds all of us, but so many of us are not tuned into. Just like a frequency dial on your radio. If you want to hear what's on 106.7, you have to tune in to 106.7.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we tune in
Uh-huh.
we tune in by being in the now, this now moment, this breath is all your power. It's all you have. It's past, present, and future right now. And whether it's through yoga or meditation or Reiki or being in nature or dancing or music or making love, or there's or sound healings, or there's so many ways to raise your vibration or tune to the frequency of your source or your higher self or your angels or your guides, all the same word. And hear the guidance for yourself. So really my passion is, of course, giving you that connection that really makes you know that your loved one's not gone. I remember that moment for myself after 18 years of believing that my father had passed, and I would never, and I was an atheist and didn't believe in any afterlife or higher power. So that connection, to this day, November 7th, 2018, is just one of the most magical days of my life. So I wanted to, on air, Jill, challenge myself to offer you these services, of course, at no charge, to reconnect you to mom. So I know we had mentioned that in an earlier episode. So if you and I want to meet off air to get some information, and then, you can report back at, just having that experience for yourself and giving our listeners a taste of what it feels like in real time.
Thank you. Or you could do it live. I don't care.
It's definitely something I have to take in information and then kind of go into my environment.
No,
But
I understand. That's fine. But I'm
yeah,
like,
but
I'm an
you
open
can.
book. I don't care if people hear or know or find out. Yeah.
We'll definitely find a way to connect via email or something like that.
Thank you. Sounds good. And we still have 3 minutes left here. What else did you
Yeah,
want to share?
so let
There's so
me
much
see.
more. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I forgot. I'm also a yoga teacher, of course. I can do
Uh-huh.
private yoga sessions. So I do 60 or 75-minute private yoga sessions. My personal love is yin style yoga, that real meditative. It's not a workout, it's a work in. That's true of all of yoga. But, I used to only do yoga for weight loss and have those really sweaty yoga sessions, and that's not where it's at for me. So even when I teach a more yang style class or private session, it's going to be on the gentler, more meditative side. That's just who I am and what I teach. And then lastly, and relating to what we said about anyone who heard my episode in regards to the children and who would want to work with me, the best way to do that would be through my virtual coaching packages. It's 45-minute sessions. You can use them in whatever interval you want. They never expire. And it could be an avenue, let's say, to meet with you and your child and start to figure out what your child's abilities are and how you can foster them. And I also work with anyone who needs intuitive eating support. You'll find tons of information on my website about intuitive eating. Intuitive eating was my unbeknownst to me first step into my spiritual awakening, because it turns out that intuition is another word for God. So and I think I just want to end by saying, that I had mentioned that, I had a very difficult, traumatic childhood, and my brother was abusive to me. And there were many levels to that. But I think probably the cruelest thing he did on a daily basis was tell me that nobody cared what I had to say. And then I had a marriage, frankly, in which that was demonstrated to me. And then I had a mental health system that I trusted with my life that essentially told me that unless they found the right combination of medications that would get me to stop saying these uncomfortable things because they made people look bad, people meaning my family or others close to me. I had a whole friend group turn against me and almost bully me to death. That's really what brought me to the edge in 2017. And I now believe that the voices that we're trying to silence are the ones that we need to be listening to most. And that if we want to really get insight into the mental health crisis in this country and the addiction crisis in this country and the homicide crisis in this country, we have to stop ignoring these realities that are right in front of us, whether it be the ACEs research, whether it be the fact that we are not just these physical bodies. We are energy that is physically focused. And until we start healing the energy body and realizing that dis-ease is a result of stuck energies and repressed emotions and unhealed traumas and things that no one wants to look at, but truly are the reason this problem gets worse instead of better, no matter how we tackle it, because we simply haven't tackled it in the way that I know would be way more effective.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I appreciate having you here. Would you mind sharing the best form and all forms of contact?
Please, yes, it is. You can email me at info@compassionatehealingservices.com. And I did want to offer, if you email me and mention the Podcast Business Network, I will give you 20% off. So please
Aw.
do that. So info@compassionatehealingservices.com. That's a full $100 off my spiritual and private investigation services. So definitely worth taking advantage of. You can call me at 856-334-0018. You'll find me on Instagram at Compassionate Healing Services, and my website is www.chsyoga.com.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here, seeing you again. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon for sure. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.